Well, you've heard this phrase a million times, right? The science is settled. Well, the science is never settled. That's the whole point of science. It's always evolving. The more we learn, the more science you have, and the more you can apply that science to the real world. That's how it works. But, geez, you hear that all the time, especially when it comes to the climate. Let's say hi and good morning to Dave Trabert, Kansas Policy Institute, joining us on KCMO Talk Radio. Dave, you guys had a good piece in the Sentinel about this very issue. We'll tie it back to what's happening here in Kansas on this front. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Pete. Good to be here.
So take me through then, Dave, this piece specifically around climate, and then we'll bring it back to Kansas and policy happening in this state.
Sure. So there have been several well-known scientists, at least in the climate arena, who have started speaking up. One guy wrote about how this was Patrick Brown, wrote about a paper he published where he deliberately left out data that didn't fit the narrative just to get published. I mean, in academia, it's called publish or perish. You have to get published as part of your job if you want to get tenure and stay employed. And so a lot of these scientific journals wield a lot of power. And he said, look, we knew that if we published what we really thought or wrote what we really thought, we wouldn't get published. So, but now he's saying, look, we have to start talking about what we left out. And others are coming forward and doing that. And they're not saying, look, there's no climate issue. They're saying, yes, there are some climate issues we need to deal with, and we don't all agree on what we should do. But we need to have open, honest conversations about the impact, and also to look very carefully at the consequences of our actions. There's always a cost, and you have to weigh the cost and the benefits.
Well, I'm just chuckling because that's all many of us have asked for many years, right? I mean, we're not sitting here saying that we've got all the answers or that the climate's not changing. It's just, hey, let's keep having the conversation. It's never actually settled. What's the best balance of protecting the climate with also not destroying your own economy here in the U.S.? Like, it's a very nuanced and complex conversation, and it's not black and white. But for, the better part of 20 years, really, since Al Gore started making millions of dollars and, flying private jets based on this very issue, we've been told that it's settled. And if you don't agree with Al Gore and everything, then you know what? You're trying to destroy the planet. And that's just simply never been true.
It hasn't. And it's another example of the cancel culture that the system is designed, the media publishing system is designed to stifle dissenting viewpoints. And again, this is healthy debate. Mm-hmm. There was probably a time when the science was settled about the earth being flat. And as you pointed out, this is how science evolves. And it's often not about saying someone is wrong. It's, look, I found some other information. We should look at this differently. Maybe some of our previously held assumptions were good assumptions based on the information we had, but now we know something else, mm-hmm. and we need to be looking at that.
Yeah, exactly right. Dave Trabert, Kansas Policy Institute. So what about here in Kansas? But you can really apply this to any state for that matter. We know that in Kansas, there has been a big push for renewables. It's been obviously a thing that's, especially in some of our more rural communities, it's been a hot topic as farmers lease out their land to some of these wind turbines. That's kind of pitted neighbors against neighbors. And it's become a big part of policy debate in state capitals, especially here in the heartland. How have you seen that play out in Kansas, and how should this play a factor in it going forward?
Well, I think probably the biggest impact that taxpayers see is every month when they pay their utility bills. Back 10 years or so ago, when there was a real push for renewable energy, and we had to have these mandates, you will do this or else, then that was a gold mine for the utility companies. Mm. And again, there were a lot of us who were saying, let's look at the consequences. What is this going to cost? And they were saying, oh, no, 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 none of these increases have anything to do with these renewable mandates. Well, now Kansas has some of the highest electric rates in the region, and they still want to say that, no, it wasn't that. It's just, well, we made investments earlier than other states did. This is exactly the reason we need to have these conversations. We have to have an honest discussion of what is the impact going to be. Now we have people struggling to pay their utility bills, largely because, well, at least partly because we've built up so much renewable energy, and a lot of it is not that there's anything wrong with it, but it's not, at this point in the game, it's not enough. We cannot move away from fossil fuels. I mean, ironically, fossil fuels are needed to produce some of the elements in renewable energy.
Yeah, and it certainly seems like that debate in Topeka is not going to be going away anytime soon. So what do you think this means now in terms of how policy needs to be reshaped and looked at going forward? What's the best way to handle this issue at the state level, whether it's Kansas or anywhere else for that matter?
One thing, Pete, I think is that people need to have a better understanding of how to have a conversation. You can't come out and just say, I disagree, you're wrong. It's, let's have a conversation. Did you know, let me ask you this question. We have to start looking at both sides. People on both sides of the issue have to be willing to have that discussion and not insist that they are right, damn it. You know, we have to have healthy debate. And we have to be willing to admit that, yeah, maybe there's something I didn't know about this topic. We're never going to get to realistic solutions if we can't have those civil debates.
Do you see any tie-in, to some folks on the text line are bringing up the Panasonic plant, of course, coming to DeSoto. Is there any tie-in to that, a project like that, or is that not really related to this issue per se?
Well, I think it's partly related. When you look at how it was sold. This is going to transform the Kansas economy. No, it's not. I mean, think about it. Of course, if Sam Brownback had said something like that, he'd be excoriated. But when Laura Kelly says it, it's now it's prophecy. Even if we get those 4,000 jobs that were theoretically promised, it's less than 0.5% change in the private sector workforce. Now, what are the costs of all that? Well, we're having to give massive subsidies, writing them checks to do it. What else could that money be used for? Maybe it would be better off in the pockets of taxpayers. The utilities, the electric that plant is going to need is ironically, you come back to climate, what's it going to take? Increase the coal-fired plant capacity in Lawrence. That just came out. We have to look at all these concepts, but too many of these things, and the common thread among all of this is vote for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very true.
You get these things pushed. Politicians, and it's human nature. Okay, you want to believe this is the silver bullet. There are no silver bullets. It's an all of the above approach. Always
is.
Yeah, and you just have to be honest and look at something. But it's hard to wring politics out of these substantive policy debates.
Mm-hmm. Dave Trabert, Kansas Policy Institute on KCMO. I know you guys had that school choice event on Saturday here in Overland Park. Did that go well for you?
Yeah, it did, Pete, and thanks for asking. We had micro school operators in from several states, I think as far away as Mississippi. And they were really enthusiastic. It was a great chance for them to network and hear from some experts in the field on how the micro school kind of industry is evolving, and a lot of really good ideas came up. And these are mostly parents who wanted to provide a better opportunity for students in their community. I mean, micro schools these are small non-public schools that sometimes have as few as 10 kids. And they're finding really innovative ways to educate kids. The kids are thriving. And this is education is another thing where it's not a one size fits all. It's more of a one size fits none system that we have. Kids learn differently. They need to have different opportunities. It's not that private school, or it's not a private or public. Again, it's all of the above. They all have to work together, and it's you focus on what's best for the kids and not worry about the impact on the adults.
Mm-hmm.
We have to flip that dynamic.
Well said, Dave Trabert, Kansas Policy Institute. Keep up the good work, Dave. We'll talk to you next week.